So I want to welcome our big crowd here to Beginners Academy. We're going to have a talk tonight about keys and keyers for sending Morse code. And we'll be sharing a video here. And let me know if there is no sound at all. Let me know. Folks, this is a straight key. Straight key is basically a switch, and there are contacts up front in this key. There's a spring to keep it open, and then there is adjustment of the spacing in the back. This key is very similar to the one that I started with as a novice around 1967. It is a it's known by several names, but Nye, but the model is SpeedX. So if you find a nice looking oval key that has SpeedX on it, I would actually recommend, if it's not too expensive, to pick it up. Well, our switch essentially has terminals on the back of the key, and this is a code practice oscillator, which is the same model I used way back when, so I got it for nostalgia's sake. And as you can see, it produces tone when we use the straight key, and that way we're going to get the dits and the das. This could also be a buzzer, any number of things, and you can find modern code practice oscillators and vintage. Even the Chinese make code practice oscillators. So we'll do a little code here. That's test and CQ. It's a general call to any amateur to reply. And after the CQ, you do DE, which is kind of French for from, and then your call sign. My call sign is N4KGL. So, from what I remember, back in the day, we had code practice records that you could put on your parents' turntable and play those. Also, there was a TV show in Alabama, that educational TV, that gave code practice. So that's it. I actually had such a long break in amateur radio that I had to relearn the code, but it was just getting my confidence back. And I just naturally send about 15 words per minute. If I'd slow down, that's probably about 8. But these days, learning the code, they recommend sending the characters at faster speeds. So Sending faster on the straight key is a little more challenging, and it's more work if you're going to do it for hours at a time. So, uh, maybe I could go faster if I was warmed up, but maybe that's 18 words per minute. Um, so we'll show you other keys that make sending at faster speeds easier. And we'll go on to another key here.
Okay, can you guys hear that all right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, great. Well, any questions about our little straight key demonstration here?
Who is that actor? He's pretty good.
He is a paid professional.
He's a great hand model.
Yeah. The keys actually got better acoustics than the speaker.
Yeah. Well, we'll move on to the next key. Here we go.
All right, this is a SpeedX bug. The bug creates the dips mechanically. The DAWs are left up to you on this side, so V.
You may notice there's a rod and there are weights on the rod, and that's how you adjust the speed. And that speed is just about the slowest that it will go. But it was really the first time I've tried that a bug out, and I think maybe I could get good enough to actually go on the air with it. So any questions about a bug?
Yeah, Greg, I saw a video just this weekend on a bug, and somebody had actually taken a little metal, it was like a tube, a sleeve, and slid it on the end and added that weight towards the end, was able to really slow it down quite a bit. And it's kind of interesting. I saw that video, and then here you are talking about keys on Monday night.
There you go. Yeah, I know with the Vibraplex keys, they'll sell you some weights to slow it down, or you can make something. But usually the people using a bug, would be operating pretty fast. They'd be somebody very familiar with code. But I did not mention the Straight Key Century Club, which is a fantastic organization. And you can't use anything electronic there, but you can obviously use a straight key, and you can also use a bug. And I apologize, Knight, that I don't have a cootie key. So Jim may find one. So we're going to move on to
Greg, I got a question for you.
Go ahead, Wes.
Do you support your elbow or just your wrist?
I don't. I think there is. No, I'm not supporting my elbow unless it happens to end up on the armrest of the chair. And I think my early training about how to use a key, you would put your whole arm on the table.
Yeah.
but I don't have room for that really. So I get away with, maybe I'm doing what's called British style, and um, pretty much have my elbow floating. A lot of things about keys are personal preference. So it's whatever you think works well for you.
Hey, Greg, what kind of key is that?
This is a vibro. What? No, sorry. It is a SpeedX bug. And I don't think you'll see a lot of those around, but it came across on eBay, so I got it. There are a lot of Vibraplex bugs out there, and I think the original Vibraplex key was a bug. So, but this is actually a SpeedX, and it was either under the NYE name or Johnson. So it's quite a find, and it actually works. So does that help, George?
Yes, that was good. Thanks.
All right. Okay. Here we go.
All right, the bug we showed you enables you to send with a lot less effort and maybe send at higher speeds. Uh, this is a paddle key which has two switches, unlike a straight key, and each paddle operates a switch. And when you pair this with a electronic keyer, and perhaps your radio has a electronic keyer built in, but it will produce the dits and das for you. So we'll do some dits, and we'll do some das. So the length of the dits and the das are done for you by the logic in the keyer. So perhaps that's a help. And so I'm going to send a little bit, but I'll be using squeeze keying since that's what I'm working on learning right now. So that was CQDEN4KGL. And you don't necessarily have to do squeeze keying, but that was developed to require even less motion to form the characters. And if I were to squeeze the keys, paddles rather, I can get a sequence without picking my hand up. And
I think that's called mode B.
So A is, and N is, well, so it depends which paddle I press first. That's the N, that's the A. And that's the two critical characters to make sure you learn, and then you keep practicing. And so that's Q. it's K. So that's also known as iambic keying, and you may not want, it's up to you, to do squeeze keying right off the bat. I think it's a learning curve in itself. I'll attempt to use this key without squeezing, and that's a little harder for me because I'm trying to unlearn that. So I'm not squeezing to send out tests, and there's some ends, but you have to do it pretty fast to get the characters the dots and the dashes grouped. So I'm not doing as good a job as I did on the squeeze keying. So actually, two switches, well, there's also single paddle levers, single paddle keys, and I'll show you one of those in just a moment.
Any question about our paddle key?
Yeah, got a question.
Okay.
You were showing mode B at first.
Well,
And calling it squeeze, which is mode B, and squeeze is okay. And then the last you were doing mode A. There's two different modes for that particular key.
yeah, I talk a little bit about the modes a bit later. But actually the keyer I was using was set for mode A. Mode B adds a dit.
No,
It adds the opposite character when you let go, which is
it appeared that's set for B. Go ahead and do like da 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 da.
well, I don't have it set up right now.
Oh, it's not okay.
Yeah,
It looked like you had it. I was watching it very carefully. It sure looked like you were doing mode B.
yeah. Well, Jim has brought up that with iambic keying, there is mode A and mode B, and there's a subtle difference between the two. And I'll mention later that I prefer mode A, and I'll tell you more about that.
Now, Greg, you mentioned that the speed that like if you just hold it on one side and get a series of dits,
Right.
the speed and the logic of it is controlled by the key. Is it not controlled by the radio?
Well, it's controlled by the keyer. So,
which is what, the key of the person or the radio or everything?
Well, actually, the paddles are purely mechanical and don't have any logic built in.
Right, they're just two switches, yeah.
But you have to connect it to either a standalone keyer, which is an electronic device, or
a modern radio,
or use the keyer that's built into your radio if it's a modern radio.
Right.
Yeah. And your keyer has some way to change the speed. Some of them have a knob, or you might have to go into a menu. Or
like this one here's got a knob here.
Yeah.
That's your speed there.
Okay, well, the next key is my least favorite key, and here we go. But it may be a good one. Well, we'll just see what I said about it. Let's go.
Here's a single lever paddle, which you can't use for iambic keying. So you still get the dots and the dashes, but You can't do the trick with squeezing. So a lot of people never really learn squeeze keying, and they get along without it. And even some very high speed operators don't use squeeze keying. So there's some personal choice for that decision. But if you're shopping for keys, you could get a single lever paddle or a dual level paddle. Single would be for keying like this one, and dual would let you do squeeze keying or iambic.
Well, a dual paddle, you can also use it without squeezing, and I tried to do that. And probably when you're getting started, that's how you go. So either paddle really could work out fine for you.
So 73.
All right, any more questions, comments?
It sounds like you're getting pretty fast iambic. Are you going to take the plunge and switch over, Greg?
Well, I am doing iambic, but
You were straight key up till a while ago, though, were you
yes,
not?
yeah. I think it's I'm getting more and more confident about iambic, so I'll have a coming out party for my iambic.
Will
So-
there be cake?
So I'm working on it, but
Jim will supply the popcorn.
but we'll just have to see. Next, we're going to talk about a keyer that is some electronics, possibly in a box, and that's what I'm showing now.
So for paddles, there's always going to be a keyer involved somewhere. The keyer that I'm using is wind keyer. And so it's going to be a box, perhaps with a speed control. It may have buttons on top to send pre-programmed messages like CQ or your exchange in a contest. This one isn't set up right now, and then it will have some jacks for your key and so forth. So there's a whole lot of variation, and keyers have been around a long time, so they're vintage models that would probably work well. But this particular wind keyer by K1EL, it's about $120, and it also it's not plugged in, but it has a USB plug here, and so your computer, your software, perhaps a logging program or contest logger like N1MM, can send the characters that you'd like to send to the keyer, and the keyer will take care of the spacing and everything. There have been problems generating code out of a computer that the timing wasn't just right, and with Windows computers, when they were so slow, and this really took care of that problem, the wind keyer, and it is so popular. Many software programs will interface with it, So it's a good value. And we will also talk about the keyer that's in your radio. And chances are you can avoid buying this kind of keyer if you just want to use the keyer in your radio.
Okay, any questions about a keyer in a box? There are a lot of them, a lot of different models. But the wind keyer has really worked out for me the best. You can use it standalone. It has a little side tone that you can enable, so it could be used for practice without your radio. But now we're going to talk about what may be in your radio, most modern radios, and here we go.
All right. We're here on my ICOM 7610, showing you the screen. If you want to do code practice, you'll need to be in CW mode, obviously. I have also plugged the paddle into the key jack on the front, and we'll turn it up a little bit. Oops. Well, I made a mistake, and that's what I wanted to let you know, is that if you want to do code practice, this setting on the left, break in, there's 3 choices, but you need to do code practice, break in off. So we're in code practice mode. I really wouldn't have to have an antenna connected. I could probably get that background noise down. You also may want to turn the RF power to 0, just as a little insurance. Actually, radios at 0 power still can transmit. You're not going to hurt the radio, but they can transmit, and they're just QRP transmitters. Even a milliwatt can probably be heard somewhere. So the setup for the keyer is under keyer, and this option won't show unless you're in CW. And under keyer, we have edit and the key setup, and a lot of different parameters. I don't mess with the dot dash ratio or the rise time, but paddle polarity, depending how your cable's wired, you might need to switch that. And importantly, I just scroll down, and the key type I've got on paddle. And you can actually simulate a bug if you want without actually having a bug. You would need a dual lever paddle, but chances are you're just going to use the paddle as a paddle. If you want to use a straight key, there's a setting for that. Oops. Alrighty. now there's some features of ICOM radios, the newer ICOM radios, or and new could be 20 years old. There are messages that you can program, and I'm hitting the wrong screen. So that could be a CQ in a contest, and this could be part your exchange. And then other things that you may want to send during the contest. And this is QRZ, who is calling me. So that is very handy. And it's essentially what you might call a memory peer, but it's built into the radio, and the radios are very nice these days in that you can I may not get there, but oh yeah, you can actually put in your alpha characters and your numbers and all into the memory directly on the radio, and but you just have to remember to do that prior to getting in a contest. So you need to study the exchange and and put these in. Here's a keyboard. So really, these radios give you a lot of support for doing CW even in an easier way, usually for a contest. A lot of it can be automated. All right. Well, we'll show you some software next.
Okay, any comments about the keyer in the radio? In this case, it was the ICOM radio. It would do the same thing, but looks like slightly different, probably in a Yaesu or a Kenwood. So,
Hey, Greg. This
yes,
Ken.
I can.
I have been looking on YouTube last day or so, and there are some really, really good YouTube things, particularly on the Yaesu FT 891, showing you how to set up all this stuff to do CW, the recorded messages and so on and so forth. But and you're right, it looks totally different than
Yeah.
but it's not hard to do, and they explain it very clearly.
Yeah, that's a good point, Ken, that you can find guidance on your particular radio. And there are Elecraft radios that have these features. Probably the G, now I don't know if a G90 has this, but well, these are buttons on the screen, but you can hook up an external box with buttons on it. So you can kick off these messages without having this keyer part on the screen, because it takes up a lot of your screen. So I have a little external box for that. And the next part is going to be talking about some contest software, and it's N1MM software, and I was recording it by sharing it on the screen, and N1MM would not share. It's just black. So I have a screenshot of the screen, and then I talk about it. So so doing code is going to get easier and easier as we go along. And here we go.
Well, is where you put in the exchange from the other station, but they have these buttons, which also you can use from your keyboard. And if you're doing CW, it will send the CW on your radio. So that's a real labor saver right there. And it's actually using the WIN keyer. So in the configuration, you can have it use the WIN keyer, and it will use that instead of using other means to try to get the code to your computer. So the WIN keyer is hooked up through USB. So I hate to break it to you, but these big contesters are pushing buttons to get their code, and they would probably be operating up here at 35 words per minute. But when I get on, I go at 20 because I don't want them to overwhelm me. So I call CQ at 20. But even though a lot of things are automated, copying the code you still need to do in your head. You could try to use a decoder, but it's not going to work all that well. And then you type in their info here on the logger, and the info, the exchange depends on the contest, and it gets logged. Well, this N1MM does all the things that contesters want it to do, and that's why it's so popular. It's a little less than obvious when you first set it up, but but if you want to get into contesting, this is how things go. So the sending is, it's just the timing. You have to push your function key or click your mouse at the right time, and then the right information goes out, and you make QSOs, and it is a lot of fun. So we have covered straight key, bug, a dual lever paddle, a single lever paddle. We've talked about the WIN keyer, and we've talked about using your rig as a code practice oscillator. If it's an ICOM rig, turn break-in off. You might have to look at the manual if it's not an ICOM rig on how to do the equivalent thing. And we've also looked at N1MM here, which interfaces to WIN keyer via USB, and then the WIN keyer actually goes into the straight key port of the ICOM radio. It would also work for other brands of radios. A real universal device. Now, one thing I didn't cover was that if you use the keyer in the ICOM and you do squeeze keying, it does mode B. There's mode B and mode A. I won't go into the nuances, but mode A is a little more comfortable for me, but my ICOM radio won't do it. So I get around that by using the wind keyer. So hopefully this has been a good introduction to keys. I believe next I'm going to show you some keys I have in my collection, um, and that's how we'll wind up.
Okay, guys. Well, it took me years to get as far as using N1MM. And so I got along without doing it, but it sure does what you need it to do when you're doing a contest. So any questions about the software operating your keyer and so I guess I said it, but they may be sending at 35 words per minute, but they're not doing it on a key. They're letting their keyer do it or the radio do it. So I hate to out all the contesters, but but anyway, that's because, you know, they're trying to make 100 contacts an hour, and if they're operating for 48 hours, it's a lot of work. And I'm sure in years past, before computers got so popular, and you know, they were doing it the hard way, and they were also doing their logs on paper. So any questions at this point or comments?
Yes. Yeah, Greg, when you're doing CW contesting, for example, my radio, I just type on a keyboard, hit send, and it goes out, or I can set it so it goes out as I type it on the keyboard. Does that count? Is that any different than doing a straight key when you're doing CW? Is it like,
They don't care how you, well, for most contests, it doesn't matter how you produce the CW. So I've done it with my straight key. You could do it with a keyboard. It's any old way you do it, unless you're operating a straight key Century Club event, and then you can't use anything electronic. So that would eliminate the keyboard and the keyer, and so you're back to a straight key or a bug or a cootie, and so forth. Jim, do you want? Yes, Frank.
I have the Kenwood TS890, and it does everything. And I picked up this little small keyboard, and it just plugs in directly into the radio, and I just type away and hit send.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really any old way you want to do it. This N1MM, I'm sure there's fantastic contesters that don't use N1MM, but it seems to be the most popular thing.
Well, I've done it, I've done it this way because I can do it. When I'm doing it, I'm actually learning.
Right.
I'm learning to pick up the letters by the sound, because I can see it come in the screen and I could hear it. And, you can't help but after a while you associate the sound to the letter.
Right.
So Greg, being a straight keyer, I passed my 20 word a minute in the early 90s, and I have just been nothing since then. So if I were going to start again, what would you suggest?
Well, Well, see, that's a really hard question. And uh, uh, for me, iambic has a paddle with and doing iambic has been a real learning curve, but I guess it can pay off. So it's all just personal preference. If you take a beginner's academy course, I found out that they recommend using a paddle.
Paddle.
So,
Okay.
um,
Well, I'm considering.
but the,
I'm
you know,
considering the May, June, if I can do it, if I can
Yeah.
figure out how.
Yeah.
And I was going to go ahead and get a key, and I was just going to start because I don't want to start with my straight key and then have to change later.
Yeah. Well, I think that was the downside of me really doing a lot with a straight key. Switching over has been a challenge. So, and a learning process. So, yeah. And when you get into CW Academy, you're going to have an advisor there that probably can give you better answers than I can. But so if you're going toward CW Academy, I would be looking at having a paddle of some type and using your rig as a a code practice oscillator, or using a standalone keyer that has some kind of side tone on it.
Well, I've got IC 7300, and it sets up almost like your 7610.
That's right.
Yeah.
There's a lot of commonality among the ICOM radios. So.
Right. Yeah.
All right. Well, good question. And I never had an answer for that, but now I can say, well, if you're going with CW Academy, which was a previous talk that we did.
Right.
Yeah.
But that's how I got started back is I watched the YouTube CW Academy presentation that you made, which was really good. And I think I told you at the club meeting the other night that's kind of got me rekindled the fire. And I didn't want to spend any time on the straight key. I just wanted whatever I'm going to learn on, I want to learn.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a good choice. But I actually advise everyone to get on the air any way they can. But you're in a transition from getting back into it, so there's good logic behind what you're thinking there. Any other questions or comments at this point?
Are you going to go over mode A and B in your talk here, or are you?
No.
I was just reading about it online as we're doing this, and it's kind of complicated to me. It says the difference between mode A and mode B iambic keying is what happens when you release both paddles. In mode A, the key will finish with the last dit or dah that it was sending at the time of release. In mode B, if it was sending a dah when you release the paddles, it will add one more dit. If it was sending a dit, it will add one more dah. So it sounds like B is a little bit tricky. A sounds simpler. Yeah. Is that?
Well, that's my opinion about it. Now, it turns out that by it giving you that little free character, there's if you really knew how to use B, there would be less hand motion to get things sent. But that's probably a very negligible amount. So, but I was kind of disappointed that the ICOM radios do B and don't give you an option for A.
What about the old FT857? Does it have A or B, or is it just straight iambic? It's an old radio.
I don't remember. We'll have to investigate.
Yeah.
Yeah, I let the 857 go.
Did you sell it or loan it?
I sold it.
Oh my.
Yeah, I know. He may give it back to me. I
Who was
sold
it?
it KN4 Papa Charlie.
Oh, not one of this group here.
No, but he's a Panama City ham.
Okay.
He's on 2 meters a lot, and when he has questions, I'm going to send them to you.
Oh, I think it's a great radio.
It is.
You know, people that do soda and Poda and stuff still talking about it. Like it's
Yeah. It's
good
really this. It's a small 100 watt package, so
yeah.
very versatile.
Yeah.
That radio, I did a lot of research with it, and it's the radio that gives you the most power for the least amount of amps that it draws, and also put out close to 100 watts down to 10 volts. So I chose that to be my battery type radio because of that.
The 857.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
didn't even know about the specs and stuff. And I think I might have told this story that I was on my snowmobile and chatting with a guy for like half an hour without the machine running. And that's a small battery. It's like what's in your lawn tractor, you know?
Yeah.
And half an hour later, I finished with a guy and some other guy comes on from the West Coast, actually. And I was out parked on the beach, down on the ice. And he said, "You're running battery on that radio?" And I went, "Yeah." And he said, "A snowmobile battery?" And I said, "Yeah, it's about 10 amp hours or something." He says, "On my IC 706, which at the time was the ICOM's offering in a mobile radio, which is a darn good radio. He said, I'm good with a truck battery for about 20 minutes and that's it."
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah.
But, you know, the ICOMs, once they get down, maybe like
Yeah.
11.5.
It's 11.7 volts,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
They drop out.
the 7100 just shuts down when it gets to 11.7 volts.
Yeah. As 857, I've had it down to like just below 10.
Yeah,
And it's
that's
still-
what I
it's
find.
still
9.5, 10 volts. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, guys, I got a little bit more for you here.
Okay.
Here we go. It's a pause in the action.
I think we put Mark to sleep. Okay, who's got his cell number to wake him up?
Here we go.
All right, a few keys to show here. I believe this key is from US Morse. They have a website. They also are sold on Gigaparts. I believe that the key is actually done by 3D printing. But anyway, this small company has a whole line of keys. They even have paddles. They're inexpensive, and they may do well for getting started with code. You just have to try one. I'd certainly give them consideration. If you're looking for a used key, the one that you see probably more often than any other is a J38 key, which was I like my SpeedX better, but it's similar to a SpeedX key, oval straight key, and there's also J37 type. So there are a lot of these out there. You're going to see one at a ham fest, and you can decide if you want one. I had already shown you the SpeedX oval key. I highly recommend this key if you're interested in a straight key. It's usually not overly expensive, but watch out on eBay. You really have to shop around to find somebody that's not going to gouge you. There is also this is a Nye key and SpeedX key. It's a different shape. I have one, but I haven't used it that much. But it's probably a good quality straight key. So I'm talking about straight keys now. Really, it took me a long time to discover the Nye master key, and it is absolutely an awesome straight key, and the contacts aren't visible. There's actually a micro switch inside the base and a little lever that's pushing it. It's usually fairly quiet and just a real good straight key. I have a lot of straight keys since I do mostly straight keying. This is a key that's hard to find. It's French, and I can't even pronounce the name, but it's a Special Forces key. It was used in South Africa, and the thing about it is it's very small, portable, and it really doesn't need a big base to use it. So I love these keys. They're so rare, they tend to be very expensive. And I don't quite have all the straight keys here. Let's see. I have so many keys I can't find them. But Vibraplex makes a straight key that I have used quite a bit. Oh, it's right here. It's kind of heavy, but even with that, I've taken it to field day. Vibraplex straight key. Um, it's good. Linda gave me this for my birthday, I think, and it has really um, been a good one. Okay, now I'll go over to some paddles, and I actually haven't even used this one, but it's a bencher paddle. It is very popular. Bob Lesko, I've seen him use it down at the club, and I think this would be a good choice if it fits in your budget of keys. The trick is there are hundreds of keys to choose from, and which one you like, you probably won't know until you try it out. So you might want to borrow one. This was a single lever paddle. I think being a single lever and you're going to be batting it around, need to find some way to keep it from moving around. It's probably could be heavier. I believe W1 SFR, he makes these, and it doesn't use a spring per se. Well, it's a different kind of spring. It's a torsion bar, and so it's different. And it is a single lever pedal. This is a Vibraplex dual lever paddle. They also make a single lever that I believe is called the Vibro Keyer. this is a nice key. I haven't gotten used to it, so I have so many to choose from, as you see. Believe it or not, I did get this from, it was K1DC, silent key here in Dothan, and it's among the best keys I have. It could be the best, and it actually came from Ukraine. Um, so getting it directly from Ukraine might be a little difficult right now, but hopefully they straighten out. Ukraine makes a lot of good stuff for amateur radio, and this is an excellent dual paddle key. All right, there are other brands of keys. This is a Kent key, dual paddle. So it's almost a endless list, and some people collect keys. You may, but my collection would be small compared to a serious collector. Let's see. Yeah, we've already seen that one. Well, there are very high quality keys made in Japan, and don't go out and buy one of these uh, unless you're very serious with CW. Um, this is a GHD key. They make a number of keys, and it's just of the highest quality. Um, since it was expensive, I'm using it. And I'll jump back to a straight key. This is a GHD straight key. Very precision, well made, from Japan. So if you're very, very serious about keys, you could look at GHD. But don't spend a lot of money, particularly if you're just learning CW. It's not necessary to have, you know, a key that costs several $100s. It's not going to make that much difference. And actually, the best thing is to borrow a key, and I have a few I'd be willing to loan to people in the local clubs. So with that, we'll wind it up. I didn't even show you all our keys, but that would just take too long. So we've covered a number of things about sending CW, keys of different types, using your radio as a keyer, using an external keyer, and using a contest logger to do the sending. So we'll wrap up this Beginners Academy and say 73, and please join us on Zoom weekly.